Starship Ouroboros Part 2. For years, Matthew and Jennifer Weaver were alone. But they were alone together, and that was all they needed. Well, all they needed to be happy. Were it not for the persistent pestering of the Ouroboros computer, odds were good that the laundry would never have been done. They tried to remain serious about their work. There was plenty to do, even if most of it revolved around studying sensor readings and confirming that the flight computer was still on course, but the sense of urgency quickly faded. They had a decade to wait. After all, it was easy to put the spectrographic analysis off until after dinner, or tomorrow, or next week. Perhaps the most amusing aspect of their new lives came from the dissonance of body and mind. The mind wanted to get on with their work, but the body wanted to play. The brain knew the importance of a balanced, healthy diet. The stomach wanted only chocolate. Matt knew that he had been with Jenny for 30 years and still loved her just as much as the day they first met, but the boy he currently inhabited thought girls were stinky and gross. "Maybe we should just be friends for now," he suggested playfully upon learning she had similar dissonant feelings. "Good idea," Jenny replied before glancing thoughtfully, no, wistfully, out of the nearest viewport. "We'll be how old when we arrive? 16? 17? Is that too young to get remarried?" The idea of marrying Jenny all over again was a potent one, more than enough to overwhelm the childish disgust for the opposite sex. Thinking quickly, he took the silver foil from a just-eaten ration bar and twisted it into a crude ring, which he placed with reverence into Jenny's hand. "Keep hold of that. You'll need it on our wedding day." It became easier to focus as they grew older. Body and mind synchronized more efficiently, emotions became more predictable and easier to control. By age 9 they successfully bypassed the impulse lockouts placed upon the ship's fabrication systems. Prior to setting out, the computer had been coded to only allow the use of those systems when no frivolous requests were submitted for a period of 3 consecutive months. They celebrated by printing flowers for the living quarters. By age 10, however, life on board ship was starting to wear them down. There were only so many places you could go, after all. Only so many times you could study the readings and find them unchanged. Only so many times you could read the same novels, or play the same games, or eat the same meals. Matt found himself spending more and more time in the vault, walking between the towering data banks with the solemnity of a man visiting a crypt. 40,000 souls waited within, trusting their futures to the mission. Believing in the Weavers to find them a new home and, in time, bring them back to life. It was quite the burden, and where he had paid it no thought at all before, now it was a crushing responsibility. What if Trappist 1 wasn't all they hoped for? He dearly wanted to revive someone else. The pair had talked about it often, but Ourob shot them down every time. The ship could only support so many people at once, and bringing back more crew risked depleting resources too quickly. He paused, caressing the cold metal of the nearest data storage unit. "We really should settle on a name," he told the dead. What were the suggestions if the planet turned out habitable? Eden? New Earth? Probably one of those. "I'll go look it up." As he walked back towards the living area, Jennifer's voice crackled over the comm system. "Matt! Get up on the bridge right now." The urgency in her voice made him startle. The young man ran as if his life depended on it, storming through the narrow corridors and bursting through the open hatchway. "What is it? What's happened?" Jenny was sat at the four-quarter science station, headphones on and listening intently. She didn't notice him until he poked her in the shoulder blade, making her startle. "Listen," she ordered, passing the headset over. "What is it?" "Just listen." He did as she told him. It was noise. It had always been noise. The two had spent many days and nights listening to the stars as they howled in the blackness, and to his ear this was no different. He went to remove the headset, but Jenny held it firmly in place. "I'm not hearing," he stopped. His ears pricked, his mind pushing more and more idle, irrelevant thoughts and perceptions away to dedicate all his mental ability to the task of listening. "This is not just noise, is it? There's no pattern as such, but it's that lack of pattern. The two young explorers looked at each other, both radiating wonder and joy. They cried out together in wordless glee, bounding into one another's arms and dancing madly around the bridge. The signals they had received were undeniably artificial. Someone in the TRAPPIST-1 system was broadcasting radio waves out into space, deliberately or otherwise. First contact. For the next 6 years, the Weavers were gripped with unshakable purpose. They lived in shifts so that one of them could be on the bridge at all times, listening to the overlapping chatter. Every spare clock cycle of processing time was dedicated to the task of recording, sorting, and deciphering the alien tongue. They debated when and how to convey the message back to Earth, though this proved to be one rare occasion when rationality prevailed. Let's hold off until we know what we're dealing with, Jenny. The last thing we want to do is tell the whole human race to come rushing out here, only to find we've made first contact with a cosmic space horror. So they waited and worked with patient dedication, becoming more confident by the day that cosmic horrors were off the table. They must have at least 100 different languages in widespread use. Jenny announced around age 14. Some of the linguistic structures are radically different from each other, with virtually no commonalities. I really hope we're learning the right ones. Matt looked up from his notes on one such language, dubbed Gruntlang by the pair because it favored short, brutish sounds. We've heard these 4 languages more than any other. That suggests one of them will be our lingua franca. The other 3 were Bubble-lang, for it was bubbly, Click-lang, for it used a lot of clicks, and Other-lang, because they hadn't come up with a better name yet. By their 15th birthdays, measured from emergence from the maturation pods, naturally, the pair had each become fluent in 2 of the core languages, and passable in the others. They, by habit, conversed in them exclusively whenever possible. This was of great help when they gathered again on the bridge to review the day's findings. "Ourob, are you sure you're right about this?" Jenny asked. "Yes, Mrs. Weaver. Based upon the language models we have compiled, there is a marked uptick in communications traffic concerning an unidentified flying object on approach to Malyar. So they know we're coming. I hope they're going to be friendly," Matt sighed. "Do you think we ought to reach out first?" "To whom, though?" Jenny replied. "I mean, imagine this had happened to pre-spaceflight Earth. How would the United States have reacted if aliens opened communications with Russia or China? How would they have reacted if the roles were reversed? Then we make a blanket communication. We greet the entire planet as a whole. In what language? Even that could provoke some kind of diplomatic incident," Jenny countered, running a nervous hand through her strawberry hair. "The closer we get, the less sure I am about everything. We could ruin these people's lives if we get this wrong." A soft notification alarm chimed to interrupt the debate. "We are receiving direct communication from TRAPPIST-1E. It is a directed, coherent radio broadcast of comparatively low power. I have recorded the message and am currently performing an audio enhancement." "Play it," Matt said. A moment later, a voice teetering on the tightrope between hope and fear spoke in Bubble-lang. "Attention alien vessel, this is the Opalar Stellar Observation Society, sending you a greeting on behalf of all of Malyar. Are you receiving us?" Matt winced. Are we really going to make first contact with what sounds like a bunch of amateur astronomers? He felt Jenny's hand close around his own. "I think we should," she said. "But first, there's something else I'd like to do." Jenny stood before him, grinning ear to ear. A faint blush filled her freckled face as she knelt down before him. From her pocket, she drew the crude ring made from silver foil he'd fashioned years before. "Matthew Robert James Weaver, will you marry me?" The end.